Hello everyone! If you saw the title of this video, you probably wonder what opening I'm talking about and what this fuss is really about, and without further ado, let's get started. Right now, European Chess Championship is going on. I would love to play there, but unfortunately I can't, such as live, but I still find it very entertaining to watch it because there are a lot of strong Grandmasters, chess players who participate there, and a lot of interesting games. And by reviewing the games, I noticed that round after round I see one opening that happens again and again, and black really struggle in these positions. And what opening I'm really talking about? This is Sicilian defense. You can say, okay, what are you talking about? Sicilian is a great opening, which I partly agree with, because I played it many times, all my life, I would say. And in particular, there is one line I'm going to discuss, which is a Rossolimo variation, and not just Rossolimo variation, but Rossolimo variation with a 6. What is this fruit, Rossolimo? This is like classical Sicilian. In Sicilian, there are a lot of lines. D6, neither super popular, also in European Championship happens quite often. There are like dragons, accelerated dragons, Sveshnikovs and stuff like this. And in this position there are two main moves. First one is d4, which is open Sicilian, but on the top level people not using it very often because there is some gatekeeper with the name Sveshnikov variation, which looks like this, and e5, where, I mean, consistently players play, and it's pretty hard to break through this wall. So people came up with Rossolimo variation back then. What's the idea? Idea is that there are basically many plans. One of the plan is to ruin the structure, which is the main one, which today we're gonna talk about more. One plan can be playing c3, d4, which happens when black doesn't take. And in this position in Rossolimo, there are many responses. A response with e6 that I mentioned before, which today we're gonna talk about a lot. A response like g6, which is probably the main weapon, I would say, nowadays. There is a knight of 6 move that Caruana have been playing lately, even during the candidates, if I'm not mistaken. d6, quite old move as well. I mean, here I don't like the positions very much. There are other sidelines like a6, but basically forcing opponent to take the knight that we want to take is weird. So, I mean, at least 3 games I met during watching European Chess Championship where black played it. We're gonna talk about today only Grandmaster games, and where the rating difference is not huge, like not 200, 300 ratings points, but less, when opponents more or less are competitive and not so far away from level. Maybe there will be exception with the Magnus game, but we'll see, who doesn't play in this tournament, but you'll understand what I talk about. So, what's the point of this opening? What white wants? White has 2 plans, castle or bishop c6, but we'll talk about bishop c6. What bishop c6 move is about? We lose the bishop pair, which is of course a drawback, but we ruin opponent's pawn structure and we create double isolated pawn, which is great success, more or less, because, I mean, the pawn structure is ruined. So what white generally want to do? White want to play again these weaknesses and kind of play like in Nimzo, because in Nimzo pretty often such capture works when we talk about upside down position, when black plays bishop before and then take on c3, and then try to capitalize on the fact that we have weaknesses, we're trying to attack it. As well, white would love to somehow block the bishop if they can, because this bishop is pretty horrible, pawns really restrict him very much. And we want to squeeze opponent, play with our strengths, with our knights, and try to win. What black has? Black has a bishop pair, therefore they try to do something about it. And the strong bishop, how to understand the strong bishop in the bishop pair, is usually the one that our opponent doesn't have. And in this case, if we talk about black, this is this bishop, because white doesn't have light square bishops, therefore we need to make our position look better. And generally what black does in this position, this knight goes somewhere here, black tries to play d6, e5 to unprison this guy, so that he could feel comfortable, and then they later try to play f5. And basically it's like, I don't know, mind battle. One guy's try to promote his plan, like white playing against weaknesses, white try to resist bishop pair, be great again, black trying to make bishop pair great, and if they don't do it, they have a lot of problems. And when we talk about top level, when people really like know a lot of theory, black can play it. However, as we will see in today's video, it's a very like risky decision. It implies a lot of dynamical play, a lot of calculations, and a lot of work should be done. So, in this tournament there were 3 games of very good Grandmasters, where white crushed black without a lot of chances, and I consider honestly this line for black very suspicious, because black needs to know a lot of theory, know a lot of dynamics, find a lot of dynamics, lift a lot of good moves. However, for white, play is pretty simple. And actually, one of the remarkable games for me is a game during the World Cup between Magnus Carlsen and Abasov that happened in 2023, which we'll analyze today as well, to show, I mean, how the game can go, how great player like Magnus do it, how other players during this tournament does it. Also, as a bonus in the end, you will see the game of Caruana from American Cup. I mean, it was also running on parallel with this event that I was watching, and there will be a game against Aronian as well. So, again, this is totally subjective. I just watched the tournament. I had a feeling that this line looks suspicious, because I myself don't like playing e6 exactly because there is a bishop c6 line. After castles there are a lot of interesting positions where white try to fight for the center, black try to play like a6, b5, also find some counterplay, and these positions are natural and interesting, but this position pretty difficult to play. And you can say that I do not understand chess, which, like, your choice, of course, but strategically it's pretty difficult, and we'll see that even stronger players than me really struggle facing this system. So let's stop this introduction, because it's already going for how long, like 7 minutes. Let's finally go to games. So, World Cup game, semi-final. Magnus needed to win. By the way, he won this tournament, so this is a little spoiler. Magnus plays b3, not the most principal line. There will be like almost all sorts of plays in this video, so like every game is pretty original and new ideas. I try to pick some games so that they weren't repetitive. In the game, Abasov played d6, which is one of the main moves, although f6 also seems pretty interesting, and seeing such moves looks ridiculous because we're already underdeveloped and we're playing with pawns. But as I said, black wants with any cost try to develop this bishop. Sometimes they do it like this as well, developing it to e6, which is also not bad. But right here Abasov plays d6, Magnus instantly tries to undermine the pawn structure by playing e5. Idea is that after taking, this pawn structure will be very weak, and we will split pawns, there will be more pawn islands, therefore it's easier to attack it. d5 will lead to situation when this bishop locked in the cage and he can forget about being developed. And e5 move is basically prophylaxis against e5 move of black, which doesn't allow this bishop to go out. d was played. Magnus plays very strange move d3, but it was definitely a prep, seeing how much time he spent, because Abasov during this tournament Vidit played already knight takes e5, which led to queen g5 and led to pretty interesting position, but it wasn't that successful, so Magnus found something new. Abasov played f6, reinforcing the structure, and Magnus says, okay, you up a pawn, but your pawn structure is pretty terrible, I'm gonna try to attack you from different angles, and we'll see later Magnus had a very nice idea. And why also, in my opinion, it's pretty hard to play as black in such positions, because white has a lot of new ideas, engines evolve, as we will see, because there will be one game of youngsters where the engine, showed really nice idea, and white has 60% win rate here. Black played knight h6 right here. I don't know, probably it was all the prep. Magnus plays rook g1, which is what I'm talking about. Absolutely stunning idea, trying to play g5, g4, g5. Castle will go, king will go to the castle lawn. Sorry for my mix-up. And then we'll start pressuring these weaknesses. Bishop a6 was played. Abasov definitely did not expect it. g4 happened. Knight f7. He trying to, put the knight on a good position where he can be pretty flexible. Queen goes to e2. Developing the queen, somewhere we might play g5, and then this pawn would be weak. Bishop e7, bishop e2, queen goes to a5. Castling right now is a little bit problematic because this pawn can be taken, so white playing preparation move c4. saying how are you doing to the bishop, because right now he's blocked right here. Our pawn chain is pretty powerful, and in general it's pretty good when you're playing against the bishop pair, placing the pawns in the way so that they blocked opponent's strong bishop, which, as I explained before, this dark square bishop is the one. Bishop b7 not working, bishop c8 not working, and for one pawn that we sacrificed, black has a lot of pawn weaknesses, pawn islands, and at the same time the bishop on a6 isn't really great. G5 was played, blocking any breakthroughs, but Magnus never stops. H6, rook h1. Right now we have a point of pressure. We later can double and create a lot of pressure on this rook. Black goes castle on, and at this point white decided to also castle on. You might say, stop, wait, there is a pawn hanging, you mentioned it, and that's true, but this greediness doesn't pay off very well, because we can play king c2, and apparently this queen isn't doing great. There is a backup plan though. It's possible to go queen a5. After that we can go rook a1, queen goes to b6, and we can create different threats, which ends up with, I mean, devastating attack, which black cannot reflect somehow. So in the game queen c7 was played, black of course didn't take it. Right now Magnus played a great development move knight e4, although engine recommends still doubling up, which I assume Magnus was a little bit cautious about h5 move, because with this counter-attack the position gets very messy, and when you have strategical advantage you don't want to mess up the position unless it's 100% clean shot. And I mean, there is no way it's like even such a great player like Magnus can evaluate all of that, and to just practically not very reasonable, complicating the game that much. Even though engine right here like says, wow, it's like a perfect position, it's just amazing, plus 1.5 or something like that. But practically speaking, playing without the piece, even with such great blockade, is kinda difficult. What's happened in the game? Knight e4. It creates already different attacks, different sacrifices potentially. Gh, knight takes, rook g8, and f4 comes, undermining everything, exploding the position in the center. And after it, Magnus wins the pawn back, and this all ends with such position, where white has better pawn structure, black has 4 pawn islands, we have opposite color bishops, and in opposite color bishops position activity matters the most, and right here white clearly has more activity, keeping in mind that there is a devastating bishop e5 pin potentially, but right now knight defends it. Here Magnus played queen e3, which was not very accurate. Queen d2 would be better, just to avoid the next move of black. Rook e6, knight e5, knight goes to the better position, becomes active. Right here, again, king c2, good move, prophylactical against different knight d3 moves, however, probably rook e3 was better, increasing the pressure on the e file. And after king b7, rook e3, queen e7, knight e5, knight goes back to the play. Magnus decided to play bishop e5, rook e5 was also an option, but I don't want to go too deep into dark forest. After rook g2, after trade-off, this is a position with opposite color bishops, and as I said, Magnus will have here an advantage because his bishop is more active. Right here he played rook h5, maybe rook e1 was more reliable, and we will see later why. Because right here Magnus' idea was queen h2, and he had a lot of time right here, and both of the opponents here somehow missed amazing resource of white, which is queen f1. In the game rook g6 was played, probably with a similar idea, but what's so good about queen f1? You might say, okay, there is a pawn hanging, we can take it. But it's not true, because after rook h2, queen e2, the piece falls, and the position is already losing for white, actually. And if we try to run away from justice, right here rook g6, rook g2 comes, it's like unstoppable, and the attack will be just winning for Abasov, and it would be huge upset. However, Azerbaijani Grandmaster didn't notice it, he played rook g6 pretty quickly, which led to the Magnus repositioning his bishop. He already had the idea of playing bishop a7 somewhere, sacrificing, which didn't happen right here, although there was a total right to do so, and everything ended with Magnus winning the game, and yeah, pretty nice win. Not flawless, I would say. I mean, Magnus, when you play World Cup, it's very exhausting, it's hard to show your best level always, but still, preparation was great, and this is one of the reasons why I kind of find this opening pretty difficult. Although I remember Mamediyarov, or maybe I'm mixing up, in this structure said that, yeah, like, It's not that terrible when you rely on dynamics, which is true, but you need to be like very strong player to understand it, to be able to outplay your opponents in such complex positions. But again, maybe I'm wrong, it's my own perceptions of these positions. Okay, let's finally go to, European Championship and the first games that I'm gonna show. And the first game right here is between, again, another Azerbaijani chess player. It was round number 3, if I remember correctly. It's like Misradin Iskandarov versus Maurizzi from France, young Grandmaster, already 2600, played like in Vacancy, first that comes to mind. And he has like 100 points of rating more than his opponent from Azerbaijan. And let's see how it went. Surprisingly, e4, c5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop e5, e6, bishop c6, bc, who could have thought, yeah. d3 was played, which is the main move, the best move as I understand. And here, knight e7 was played, queen c7 is also an option right here. Trying to play 5 later on, but knight e7 is more common move, with an idea to play knight g6 and then try to have this option, plus the knight will not stand on the way of a 5 pawn, as we will see later, and that's a good idea. Right here there are many ways, like castle, different h4s, knight bd2, which is the strongest move according to the engine nowadays, at least like Stockfish70 told me, as that it's true, maybe he's wrong, who knows. But right here castle was played, and I don't know why really black was thinking for 17 minutes, because castle is one of the most reasonable moves, and right here white also started thinking, so or black prepared something and didn't expect this line with bishop c6 and had some direct preparation. White also probably didn't expect it, because white really started improvising, because knight g5 is not the best move right here, but white really like go into creativity flow, trying to mess things up. Idea is pretty simple, try to play f4, f5 and mate the opponent, so the fight gonna be very, very interesting. f6 was played, typical move, bishop e7, white goes f4, that was the reason why knight fall back to h3, so that f4 was an option. After castle, c4 was played, again trying to use this Nimzo idea to isolate this bishop so that he didn't feel alright. What black tries to do, black tries to play f5 to use these holes to improve the bishop, and then later black had an idea, again spoiler, d6, e5 to open up the bishop. However, after knight c3 there was a great opportunity to play d5, which honestly speaking, when you play as black, it's really hard to consider, because after d5 move, while let's say d6 looks more natural to, let's say, master to the eye, because then you have a clear plan of playing e5, plus your pawn structure is not vulnerable. And what's the critical difference is that after d5, pawns doesn't have this feature yet to go back, there is no such upgrade, and these pawns are already backward and doubled, or isolated and doubled if, let's say, this capture will happen, which is easier to attack. However, when the pawn is on d6, it defends c5, and to c6 it's pretty hard really to get. And d5 apparently was a great move with a pretty concrete idea, because if white tries to close the position like Magnus did in the previous game, then after dc, queen d4, we might lose a pawn, and if we take, then it's a nightmare scenario, because black has and protected passed pawn, and double pawns are not on the board anymore, and everything improves light square bishop, because he will have a great main diagonal. Queen e2, which happened in the game, wouldn't be better either, because right here there is a cool trick, fe, d, and then we have like dc idea, therefore bishop a6 is pretty cool move, because after b3 takes, we still have this check. Don't know if like black considered it, if white considered it, what was in the minds of Grandmasters. But yeah, d6 totally understandable move. I also kinda like it how it looks. Queen e2 and e5. But right here white had a very nice idea, which is ef. Actually, I said it for my students, some of them, how to play right here, and not so many people came to the right conclusion, and yeah, in the game for black it was also hard to make the right choice. In the game bishop f5 was played, which was not a good move. Maybe black wasn't satisfied with some other lines, but right here, what the problem? That white can throw g4 right here, right in the attack, because center more or less close, and with the two moves we gain a lot of tempos and have really nice initiative and attacking possibilities. Better was to play knight f4, because after some knight f4 takes, we just have a bishop pair in position that is more or less open, our pawn structure not really criminal, it's doing fine. Bishop f4 looks more challenging, which I think would, concern Mark more, because right here if we play bishop f5 we receive knight e6 and then it's a fork, and then we have a queen that is very active, which is very scary. However, after rook f5, knight e6 takes, there is an amazing move queen d7, not giving up the bishop pair and saying to the knight, get out of here, just go away, and we'll have a bishop pair, which is great. And probably this was missed. Again, it's my assumption, but maybe I'm wrong. Bishop f5 was played, and after g4 white just started cooking. Knight goes to e4, bringing the piece to the game, but black's defense is very solid. h5 is a great maneuver, trying to undermine and blow up the pawn chain on the king side. However, white is not behind. White playing knight g3 to attack the pawn and defend this one. Great defense. Knight takes h5, black doesn't stop, play g6, great dynamical defense, which is called active defense, which is one of the best resources when you've been pressured. You need to try to find some counterplay so that you weren't like, I don't know, a guy to be beaten and yeah, like, in the boxing match without any chances. Gf was played, and right here bishop h6 was better, but this is all like sort of details, because I would be scared as white going for such position, because even though I'm up in exchange and like engine is a cruelest machine sometimes, it's pretty scary to play against the knight on the outpost against the bishop pair in the position like this. So GF happened, black won the pawn back. However, white still had a lot of pressure, and the king of black looks way more vulnerable than our king. And this all led to such position where knight is stronger than the bishop, because bishop doesn't have any attacks yet, king is weak, plus in the endgame this will be outside passed pawn, which is a game changer very, very often. Plus black has a pawn majority in the center, but it's hard to capitalize on it because pawns are doubled, and this is rather a liability. And everything led to the attack of white, plus black was in the severe time trouble when white saved time really nicely. And in the very end, yeah, it's like black couldn't defend any longer. As you can see, 33 seconds, it's impossible, and white won. So yeah, black seemed to do everything right, but still, because of these pawn weaknesses, because of this fact that black needed to play dynamically, even though, like right here, h5 was a great move, it's just defense takes a lot of resources. It's very hard to play while defending, even if you like very strong grandmaster. So let's go to the next game. The next game gonna be between French Grandmaster Maxime Lagarde versus Marine Bosiocic. Forgive me if I'm wrong. Not very good in spelling all these surnames. And difference right here is in white's favor. So white went favorite, but in the last game black was favorite, but it didn't help. And right here, great preparation by French Grandmaster. Everything started again without any unexpected turns. d3, knight e7, h4. So all kind of moves I'm gonna show you today. h4 idea, very nice, like AlphaZero like such things. You pushing the pawn, trying to create weaknesses. Plus also you fight against the main resource of black, which is knight g6, because we can throw h5 immediately, which is very, very nice, and knight would have to go back. So the move is very challenging, and right here black responds with h5, trying to stop it. And white plays e5, trying not let black play again d6 e5 idea. f6 was played. That's a pretty sophisticated idea. The point of this very weird looking move is that after taking we can play d6 and play e5 anyway. White says, you want a pawn? Take it, I don't care. The same approach as Magnus did, because even though the center is strong and the pawn's kind of fine, pieces really suck. That's a reality, and this was all preparation, because white playing these moves very fast. Castle, knight f5, rook e1, everything is in prep, bishop takes, queen takes, g3, probably black also familiar with this position, although black started taking more and more time. But white continues, knight g5 attacking the pawn on h5 with the queen, g6 was played, and white play a3, which is a typical idea for Rossolimo, especially with g6, when you play a3 before, and after this trade, this pawn on a7, very weak. We have like different jumps, and especially knight a5 jump, which can be very pressuring. That's the reason why black plays a5 and white plays b3. Move look very strange. Why do we play with pawns when we have some activity? But the idea is to prevent a4 fixing our pawn on b2, because right now with a4 you can, solve this small tactical puzzle by stopping the video, but knight b6 is the move with the fork. In the game, knight d4 happened. Right now there is a threat of going here. White plays c3, already, white probably out of book. Knight f3 doesn't work, and the point of black is to create a weakness. But right here, actually, white played great. White played rook a2, trying to use this maneuver to centralize and prepare some center blow, because then all the pawns will be weak, because our knights, our rooks, all of the pieces are in the game, and we can use it very well. Queen d8 was played, knight e3, trying to kick away like this knight to have an opportunity to play d4, which happens instantly, and right here it was very challenging to play for black. Even though black has more time, black needed to find a great resource. cd ed, taking centralizes the queen plus exposes lots of weaknesses. Knight f7 was important to kick away this knight, and after take d, if black takes, pawn structure is horrendous, really horrible, because too many pawn islands, therefore d5 should be played, and white kinda have this maneuver of going here, but black has super powerful d4 move, which makes life for the bishop amazing. And knight f4 not working because the sacrifice is a very brutal, and it's very hard to fight against it. So what happened in the game was just ed double capture, and right here play for white was simple. White using all these weaknesses, there is a hole on e5, this knight is invincible because the queen is hanging in the back. After knight f5, queen c5 was slight inaccuracy because it was better to keep queens on the board, as we will understand later on. Queen c3 was a bit more precise, but in general white carried out everything perfectly. Even though black was up a pawn for a while, white's piece activity and coordination, which is very important in chess, was on another level, which led to the victory in the end. White avoided all the traps and won the game. So yeah, another game, another great victory. Right here preparation was great, but next game will be stunning, I promise you, so let's go here. Okay, I realize that video is taking longer than I expected, so I'm gonna be shorter, and this is a game between two youngsters, Gurel, Turkish chess player, he's like super young, as well as Samunenkov, who I played against. In Classic I still hold the score 1-0, but probably because when I played him when he was younger, it was like 3-4 years ago or something, and yeah, it's like both of the players are really bright talents, and let's see what happened in their game. You wouldn't believe, but again, Rossolimo variation, and right here bishop c6 was played. Turkish chess player plays d3, knight e7 we already saw today a lot, and here knight b2. As I said, it is the strongest move, because it combines a lot of options. Let's say knight g6 is the main move. One of the main moves. Right here the problem that there is h4 move, and then compared to the game with Lagarde and Bosiocic, that after h5, e5 is very nasty, and right here it's pretty hard to play, for example, like f6, because we have knight ready to support it, we have a queen ready to attack it, which is quite problematic. There is an idea of d6 to play e5, but then again it fails because of e5. There is an idea of f6, which engine recommends, with an idea to go e5, d5. However, there was a game of like Aronian versus Caruana in the title Tuesday. It's of course not the main like source of games, it's not classics, but still this line is very interesting, with a lot of stuff going on. In the game queen c7 was played, which is one of the main moves. Idea is to try to play e5 and then or d6 or d5 depending on the setup black uses, and white plays h4. And right now again it's pretty hard to play because this pawn is marching forward. Again, playing h5 in this case will fail because of e5 and playing f6 already pretty difficult because of all these queen e4 ideas, and this knight is pretty weak. King on f7 will not defend it that well. If d6, which is the move, probably h5 will be a problem somewhere, like h6 can be a threat, e5 is possible to play, but knights will be active. In the game, e5 was played, which was tried also by Gelfand, which we can truly trust in terms of theory, I guess. And right here, Samunenkov made, like, not a mistake, but inaccuracy, and right here the game for him will be a downhill, which is a problem of such lines. If you get in the preparation of your opponent, when your position is strategically not good, which I consider to be not good with all these weaknesses, you need to play really like dynamically. It's like need to find some solutions, and even if you are a strong player, it's still pretty hard to do. So he played h6, however Gelfand played right here d5, which after c4, f6, queen c2 leads to some sort of Nimzo setup, but it's like, I mean, a really boosted Nimzo on crack, because, I mean, white right here achieve everything. Like in Nimzo, usually, like, if we turn colors upside down, white already has like bishop on d3, all the stuff, attack going on. Right here in this position, white cemented the center, the bishop is not great, the pawn is weak, we have knight b3 idea, and it's just hard to move on from here. So h6 was played, queen e2, d6, knight goes to c4, which is a typical maneuver. Right here, black tries to play knight g8 to reposition the knight, later trying to go to f6 because the knight cannot longer go to g6, knight h2, pretty direct idea, and f4 comes, trying to blow up the center. King is here, weaknesses are waiting, so f4 was the move. In the game, bishop e6 was played, which led to unsolvable problems already. ef was better, but how much? I wouldn't myself wanna end up in such situation, because e5 comes, engine says that it's holdable, it's playable, but practically speaking, it's very hard to move on. And after bishop e6, these pawns became isolated and doubled, and just enjoy the great play by the Turkish Grandmaster. He attacked the weakness, provoked some holes, and even though there is a light square bishop, it's hard to defend it. Black tried to find some counterplay, even gave up a pawn to activate the bishop, but no counterplay. Center is closed. For white, the play is super simple, and it's just a torture. Like when you play such position as black, you just playing faster so that it ended sooner, because it's like, yeah, you're like trying to do something, you're looking for chances, but it's just basically an agony. And one bonus game, and the not lesson, get used to lessons, and the video will be over. This is a game between Levon Aronian and Fabiano Caruana. It's 25-minute game. It was like loser bracket final, as I remember, of the American Cup, which Hikaru Nakamura won. And right here, this is the line that happened. And right here, Levon Aronian copies Magnus Carlsen move, but here he goes for a different approach. He goes d4. And even though it's like doesn't fit all the standard understandings of this position, still the game is quite interesting. Again, Levon tries to fight for the center, kinda resist against d5, however, black anyway managed to do it. But right now there is a weakness on d5, which white can attack, white can blockade it. Right here, Levon plays rook a2, although probably more casual setup would be knight b5, knight d4, and blockade this pawn, and then try to attack it with minor heavy pieces. In general, against isolated pawn, good to train minor pieces so that we had a pawn break. However, right here we don't have pawn break, so all the pieces can be used. Rook a2 was played. Rook d2 probably was more concrete right here to follow with an idea, but I guess Levon didn't want to simplify the position so much, so he played some sort of prophylactical move h3. Then he centralized the pieces. However, right here, Caruana made an inaccuracy that costed him the game, in my very humble opinion, because after a5, you will see how Levon created pressure, and we'll understand what's wrong. But okay, let's even see it right now. Levon tried to play knight d4, he played knight b5, right now this knight cannot be kicked, and after bishop a6 that happened later, Levon just played a4, making another outpost, and it's very hard to carry on. However, it's like, what what looking really interesting. There is a move d4, because our bishop really sucks. We have a bishop pair, the strong bishop is the one on b7, we need to open it to start attacking, and after knight d4 we have a lot of curious ideas, which I guess would be interesting to play. It's not like the best top engine line, but it looks really interesting, and basically all the ideas are kind of similar to that. However, ideally Levon just demolished Caruana. It was hard to play. a5 became a weakness. Levon took it, and then the game went on. Levon had a time lead. Right here he could take the pawn on d4, but he decided to play safer. Everything ended up with the opposite color bishops, and I mean, despite the fact that it has pretty drawish reputation, right here, yeah, white also has attacking potential, 2 extra pawns, and Fabiano couldn't do anything but resign. In the end, the game went on, but Levon is the player who will win such game very easily. By the way, cute finish, because then it's an opposition and winning pawn in game. So, what do you guys think about the video? Please, if you liked it, like it, comment down below, subscribe. Any support would be appreciated. Also comment if you would like to see more videos like that. If you disagree with my subjective opinion, it's not like objective that this opening is lost. Engine gives it like one of the best responses, but I think practically speaking, without engine talking, it's very, very difficult, and this like games that happen in this tournament kind of prove the point, and unless you're like very experienced Grandmaster, I would not clearly recommend playing that. See you in next videos, and goodbye.